Want to know why? Ask how. Howard, the humongous. The Clinton-Trump campaign is triggering talk about white supremacism. And white supremacism is a term being used steadily in conversations among black intellectuals at book festivals covered by C-SPAN Book TV. Now look, white supremacism is indeed dangerous. Just look at Dylan Roof, who killed 9 people at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Roof was motivated by white supremacism. But there's another form of supremacism that we have to worry about today. It's religious supremacism. Specifically, it's Muslim supremacism. Back in the early 1500s, 500 years ago, Erasmus, the international European scholar, idolized the Roman philosopher and orator Cicero. But Erasmus imagined that if Cicero were to come back to life, Cicero would instantly drop his paganism and become a Christian. Why? Because Christianity was the one clear and obvious truth. It was something that all sensible people would embrace, including Cicero. Was Erasmus' Christian supremacism harmless? Not on your life. At the same time that Erasmus was writing, Spain was sending conquistadors to lands that were brand new to Europeans, to the Americas. The conquistadors assumed that Christianity was the one clear and obvious truth. What's more, it was the only way to get to heaven. So the conquistadors tried to convert the Aztecs and the Incas in the New World to Christianity, even if it involved killing the Incas and the Aztecs in great numbers. After all, you should save every soul you can, right? Not long after, when Spanish monks showed up in the Americas, they too tried to convert the natives. It is said that in the process they used 2 relatively new tortures. Torture number 1 involved forcing the victim to drink immense amounts of water, then jumping up and down on his or her stomach. The torture number 2 was waterboarding. Why were the Christian Spaniards doing these horrendous things? To save souls. To make sure the poor natives did not end up in hell. A noble ambition, right? It all depends. How do we turn this page? Oh, Lord, what a struggle. Okay. Was Christian supremacism dangerous? You bet. 70 million, that's 70 million Native Americans died as the Christians worked to spread their religion and accidentally spread something else, their diseases. Is there religious supremacism in our world today? And is it dangerous? The answer is yes. It's Muslim supremacism. It's the Muslim supremacism championed by groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram. Muslim supremacism is also championed far more diplomatically by the world's second largest international body, a body second only to the United Nations in size. That body is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation includes the foreign ministers of a walloping 57 nations. And the organization has lobbied hard for roughly 15 years to persuade non-Muslim countries to outlaw, quote, insults to religion, unquote, meaning insults to Islam. In many of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation's member nations, insults to Islam are punished by death. And that sort of severe sentence is what the Organization of Islamic Cooperation would apparently like to see in nations like England, France, Germany, and the United States. The organization calls for what it names as deterrent punishment. Just how severe can deterrent punishment get? In the Muslim nation of Bangladesh, Mohammed Mahbub Alam is the editor of the daily Al-Ihsan, a self-styled international Islamic magazine that on its first page calls for curses and punishment against, quote, those people who reject the faith, including, quote, the Jews and the polytheists, and, quote, Christians of all nations. Alam, the editor, got together a delegation of religious leaders, visited the government, presented a list of 83 secular bloggers, and asked that the government prosecute them. Prosecution would have meant a death sentence. The government ignored the request, thank goodness, but that wasn't the end of the matter. Pious citizens took matters into their own hands, just as the Quran says that they should. They stalked the bloggers, then hacked them apart with machetes. To date, 20 of the bloggers on the hit list have been killed. They've been killed for espousing ideas about human rights. And they've been killed for being secular. Secular in Bangladesh, by the way, is the equivalent of atheist. And atheism, we're trying to turn these pages, and atheism is punishable by a sentence of death. So when the Organization of Islamic Cooperation calls for deterrent punishment against insults to Islam in the United States and Europe, just how severe a deterrent punishment does the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, want? Keep your eye on the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. It's also the organization that has led the campaign against Islamophobia. In other words, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has led a global crusade to shut critics of extremist Islam up. But fear of a genuine threat is not an illness. It is not bigotry or prejudice. It is not a phobia. And Islamic extremism is a genuine threat, a threat that deserves to be feared and countered and stopped. Back to Islamic supremacism. Muhammad said that Islam is above all other religions. Islam is the one clear truth. All other religions are false. Later Islamic scholars developed the concept of fitra. That's F-I-T-R-A-H. Fitra is the one and only real inborn human nature. We are all born Muslim, according to the concept of fitra. We are all born knowing the truth of our Creator, Allah, God. We are all born knowing the truth exactly as it was handed to us by Muhammad, God's only true prophet. We are all born knowing Islam. Then our culture miseducates us. It weans us away from that clear and obvious truth, the truth of Islam. It fills our heads with false idols. It fills our heads with the false gods of democracy, freedom of speech, pluralism, human rights, and nationalism. All sins that are cursed in the magazine of ISIS, the magazine called Dabiq, and cursed on the streets of Britain by Muslim demonstrators. According to Islam's religious scholars, our culture takes us from the path to paradise and puts us on the path to hell. When Muslim youth are discontented and make trouble, the scholars say that it is not because they don't have an education, it is not because they don't have jobs, it is not because they don't have social status. It is because their souls are troubled. Inside of them is a deep truth, and they are alienated from that truth. The truth that they were born with, the truth of Islam. That's the truth that would save them. That's why they are troubled. They need to be brought back to Islam, the scholars say. Muhammad left the legacy of Muslim supremacism, but that supremacism was part of a bigger inheritance. Muhammad also left the goal of global conquest. He left the idea that if you don't kill unbelievers, if you simply sit on the couch and let others advance Islam via jihad, you are not doing God's will. And if you sit on the couch, there's a good chance you won't end up in paradise. On the other hand, if you do go out and kill unbelievers in order to spread the truth of Islam, a special bonus awaits you. If you live, you will get everything you can steal from the people you murder and defeat. That's the booty, the loot. And you'll get a double share of it. All of that is mapped out in the 8th chapter of the Quran, which is about dividing up the loot, dividing up the booty. But the real payoff, the big one, comes if you die killing unbelievers. Die on the battlefield, and you will get an express ticket to paradise, the 7th level of the heavens. Yes, paradise, complete with the fabled 72 virgins. Who left the concept of Muslim supremacism? Muhammad. Muhammad left the idea that God's will not be complete until Islam rules the planet. Yes, God's will be incomplete until Islam rules the entire globe. Which means that Muhammad's Islam is not just a religion in the Western sense. Not at all. It is what scholars call, quote, a complete system of life, close quote. It is a system of government. It is a military system. It is a judicial system. And it is even a system of manners and morals. Or as Muslim scholar and author Sayyid Ali Asghar Razvi put it, the aims of the life of Muhammad as the last messenger of God on this earth were to destroy idolatry and polytheism, to proclaim the absolute oneness of the Creator, and then he says in 3 different ways, to establish Sharia, to establish Islamic religious law on the face of the entire planet, and to create an apparatus in the form of a political state for the realization of all the foregoing aims, and one which would also maintain the momentum of Muhammad's work. Within 23 years, says Razwi, of Muhammad's ministry as God's messenger, Muhammad had achieved all these aims. He had established a state, a judicial apparatus, a military apparatus, and rules right down to what direction you should face when you are eliminating. That is Muslim supremacism. Is it dangerous? You bet. Christian supremacism has been dead for over a century. But nearly 1,400 years after Muhammad's death, 1,400 years, Muslim supremacism is still going strong. And roughly 300 people a day are dying of Muslim supremacist violence. Thank goodness there are Muslims trying to isolate and eliminate this dangerous, militant supremacism. There are Muslims who want a reformation like the Reformation that Martin Luther brought to Christianity in 1517. There are Muslims whose religion is modern, pluralist, and tolerant. But they are under attack. They are under attack from groups like the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They are under attack by Muslim supremacists. It's your job and mine to spot the supremacists and to denounce them. And it's your job and mine to support the reformers. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the, I think this is it, off by